Well, good morning. I'm making this video on Friday morning in Wichita Falls, and right now I am supposed to be in the Twin City in Minnesota to Fargo, North Dakota. The weather forecasts right now are for highs in the upper 20s or low 30s and lows in the teens, so it's not going to be as brutal as I'd feared, but uh, it's easy to see that I'm being quite truthful when I say I would rather be with you all this morning than up in Minnesota on university business college kind of business. So Amanda Clausen's helping me out by handling any questions you have there in the classroom, and we're going to do a couple of videos to talk you through corporate level strategies. When my wife and oh, wait a minute, I'm ahead of myself. So here's what we're going to talk about. Corporate level strategy is the next step above the business level strategy that we've been studying thus far. So this is where companies are in multiple businesses. And we're going to talk about this magic word synergy and how companies try to create synergy. And there's also the strategic decision of how big should the companies be. Now, this probably won't come through very clearly on the recording. You all know I love Dilbert. So the first panel says, I plan to open an art gallery with a full bar. And then he says, next panel says, I'll specialize in putrid art that's unreasonably priced, which is to say, I'm going to sell vastly overpriced art. And then you see the drunk in the last panel saying in very slurred English, that's so beautiful, paying the very high price. And he's got the word synergy above that. That's funny and sometimes closer to the truth than we might like to admit. When my wife and I moved to Texas about 15 years ago, we saw this new Christmas tradition of putting these lights on the roof lines and thought that was really cool. Never seen that before. And I did a little pricing and asked some questions, and I was researching this. Turns out it's actually awfully expensive. At the time, I was teaching an undergraduate strategy class just like this, and one of the students in the class had his own lawn service business. And so that's why you see the picture of the trailer of the typical lawn service gear, some weed eaters, and then they put their riding lawnmowers and the like on the trailer. And I asked the young man, it was like in November, I said, hey, do you know anybody that does this Christmas light on the roof thing? He goes, yeah, I do. And he proceeded to give me one of the best descriptions of how you can try to search for synergy that I'd ever heard in a diversification strategy. He said, I have my lawn mowing business. He said, I have a lot of tools. I have a truck. But frankly, in the wintertime, I don't do much work because the grass isn't growing. People don't need much yard work done. And he said the most important thing, he said, and what I have is I have a list of customers who are on record as being willing to pay somebody to do something that perhaps they could do themselves. And so that was a great description of a diversification strategy. He was both in the Christmas light business and in the lawn care business, and he was leveraging some resources. That would be his time when he was in the winter months and didn't have as much to do on the lawn care side, and his customer list and a little bit of his equipment. So it isn't just big corporations that do this idea of diversification strategy. Okay, here's an interesting question for you. How long ago did Walmart start putting gas stations in front of their stores? Now, Walmart went on an explosion in the I would say the early to mid 1980s is when Walmart started popping up all across the country. Believe it or not, it was in 1996, 15 years, a good 15 years after Walmart started to explode, that they created an alliance with Murphy to put gas stations in front of their stores. Now, one of the things is Walmart's no longer doing this partnership with Murphy. When Walmart opens a new store, they put a Walmart gas station in front, just like there's Walmart gas stations basically in front of the Sam's stores. Here's the interesting thing about synergy. A study shows that Walmart sells about 2% more from supercenters who have a gas station in front than do not. Well, why does that make any sense? What does it take to have a good gas station? You need a good location, and you need room to maneuver, and you need customer flow. That's exactly what Walmart provides. Flip that around. Sometimes when you need gas, you need something else. And so Walmart provides that too. You can get gas and then run inside and get whatever it is you need. And so this is this idea of putting two things together, getting synergy and getting more from it than you would expect. So the idea of diversification is when a company decides to compete in multiple product markets. Sometimes people will say multiple geographic markets, but I think that's a stretch. So we're going to stick with multiple product markets. I like the opening case in the textbook. They stole it because I've been using Amazon for years, but I think it's a great illustration. What is Amazon? It's an online retailer. It is obviously by far the largest online retailer, and it sells some of its own products, but actually the majority of the products sold through the Amazon website, they are simply acting as a third party, well, a connection device. They are actually sold by third party retailers. Amazon also sells hardware. That would be the Kindle, the Fire TV, and the Alexa. And if you think about what's the purpose of a lot of those products, it is to drive more sales. Then Amazon developed Amazon Web Services, and it became a giant in cloud computing. And that went back to their expertise that they had developed in basically servers and storage management to run their primary business, which was as an e-retailer. And now they're expanding into delivery businesses. You can see that all of those things connect in the idea of selling more stuff, and that's where the tie between them comes in. This is a great chart out of the textbook, and it explains how they look at businesses. I'm going to make your life a little bit easier, but because I'm going to tell you on the exam, there will never be a question asking about percentages of business, nor will I ever use the term related, linked, or related, constrained. I don't think they make a lot of sense, and I don't see the utility in having you memorize them. What I do want you to be familiar with is that there are different levels of diversification: low, medium, and high. So let's go talk about the most favorite question in diversification strategies, and that is the idea of synergy. Synergy is the basic idea that you put two things together, and when combined, they are worth more than either of them are worth separately. And so the funny math test is 1 + 1 = 3. A wordy way to say that, and a good way to say it, is why are these combined entities worth more together than they would be separately? And that's sometimes called the better off test. Why are they better off together than they would be separately? Let me illustrate that for you. Do you know, and this is a question I would usually ask in class, what does Pepsi control? Well, everybody thinks of drinks when they think of Pepsi. Did you know that Pepsi also owns Frito-Lay? So they own all the salty snacks. Makes tremendous sense. They sell in the same places. They serve the same customers. They're complementary products. And so Pepsi and Frito-Lay's goes well together. Okay, what's Coca-Cola's equivalent of Frito-Lay? Doesn't have one. It's a pure beverage business. And so why is Frito-Lay better with Pepsi than the two would be separately? And so that's the great test. Let me give you my perspective on synergy, and I think it's one that's worth remembering. I put that little treasure chest on the slide for a very specific reason. Does sunken treasure exist? Absolutely. Do people go to great efforts to find sunken treasure? Absolutely. Do they, on rare occasion, find sunken treasure? Yes, they do. It's real, it exists, people look for it, and sometimes they find it. And I think that's exactly the way it works with business synergy too. Business synergy exists, people work very hard to create it, and sometimes, but not nearly all the time, they create it. So synergy is a great buzzword that is overused. So part of what we're going to be talking about in the following slides is how do you really create synergy, and how can you, as an outsider, see whether there's a possibility that synergy is going to happen. That'll be up in the next video.